It's been just over a week since Donald Trump returned to the White House, and in that time, he's signed dozens of executive orders targeting everything from immigration, the military, climate change, federal diversity programs, and much, much more. As his new administration gets underway, some legal experts argue Trump's earliest days are showing how he'll test the limit of power, but also checks and balances themselves. Joining us now, New York Times bestselling author and award-winning podcast host, Sami Sage. Sami, thanks for joining us way early in the morning. First, I just want to start with this general idea of the shock and awe campaign that we've seen the Trump administration go on. To me, it feels like it's the point. What are you looking at?
That's 100% the point. You know, I think about how at the DNC, State Senator Mallory McMorrow from Michigan had this giant set piece, this prop of a Project 2025 book to demonstrate how extensive the Republicans' plans were. And I feel like they just dropped that book on the American people in 1 week. And that was
after
really
saying
the point.
That's not really our plan.
Right, of course. And I think part of the problem is that the Democrats were not able to convince the American people that this was the plan and that they were going to do it. And here we are.
Here we are, and I think messaging is such a central piece because I was reading a piece in New York Magazine the other day. I'll pull up a piece of it on the screen so we can talk about it. The author says this set, and she's talking about young conservatives right now who flooded Washington for the inauguration. She says their most visible political stance is a reaction to what they see as the left's puritanical obsessions with policing language and talking about identity. To me, that's been a central point to being a capital D Democrat. And the party is now trying to pull that apart. What do you see in this?
Yeah, I think that we're seeing an extreme overreaction to the way that people have seen the Democrats as being obsessed with DEI and obsessed with identity politics. And in this article, this New York Magazine article that I thought was really fascinating and really telling, they talk about how so many of the people who were in D.C. for the inauguration were sort of bound by this desire to be unfettered in what they're saying. And there are people who are saying, now I can say the F word, the slur, and the R word. And, you know, it reminded me of a similar article in the Financial Times from about a week ago where there was an investment banker who was saying that at work, he says this anonymously, it's a new day because he can say the F word and the R word at work now. And what I really think of this is, like, is that important to you? And the only word I can come up with is vice signaling, because it's the opposite reaction to what Democrats were doing. And it's exactly, and it's this really like reactive way of showing who they are.
But why is that the thing that's overcoming politics and policy? I mean, I know that MAGAism is cultural at this point, but for Democrats who are trying to chart the path back, and they've got the DNC elections this week, even yesterday, Governor Whitmer wouldn't name one specific name of who's leading the party, just saying they've got a lot of leaders.
That's your answer.
But is that viable?
No,
okay.
But it is how it is. That is the landscape right now. And for better or worse, there isn't really someone who's been able to take that mantle. And you're right. I think part of the reason that people see this about culture, and the Democrats are in a deep cultural valley right now, and I don't see them finding their way out because that does not seem to be their desired path. But part of it, I think, is the information environment. If there's really only a few silos in which you can get your information, and everyone, you know, if everything that's being fed to you is angry about identity politics and all of these things, then that's what people are going to obsess about.
Well, there were key Trump advisors after the election who were saying to the keyboard warriors, in their words, that they were the reason that they were able to sustain and continue the MAGA movement. It's a central piece. So we've talked about this, the technology oligarchs that Biden called out at the end of his term, the Musks, the Zuckerbergs, and then, of course, the warriors themselves behind the screens and behind their keyboards. Mm-hmm. The Democrats don't feel like they have that.
Do you want to know why? Because they do not, because the leaders of the Democratic Party, for lack of a better word, have been unable to connect with the emotion of the American people. And people just do not believe them. They don't believe them. They feel that the party has been captured by moneyed interests just as much as the Republican Party. Whether or not that is true is, you know, depends where you sit.
Yeah.
I would say that is not true. But that is the perception amongst the average voter.
Yeah.
And I think that is the life of the average voter. It has been reflected to them that the Democrats were not really looking out for them either.
Yeah, and when you were at the DNC, as I've been on the campaign trail, this is the thing that we hear from voters all the time. The message is just for some reason not connecting. Sami Sage, thank you as always for joining us.
Thanks, Allie.